When we last left off with the Spider-Man book, we discovered many things were wiped out of existence in the end of the Spider-Verse. When they were all returned to the proper timeline, we discovered something that no one knew existed. Spider-Man's sidekick, Spider-Boy, apparently. Spider-Boy got mad at Peter and Miles for not remembering him, and after telling them that his name was Bailey, he jumped off. Well, in today's story, we're going to find out a little bit more about this sidekick of Peter's. This is Comicstorian. We take comic books, we turn them into audio dramas, and this lets you know what's going on in the world of comics. Like, for example, if you want to know what's happening with the Spider-Man sidekick, go check out Spider-Man 8, 9, and 10, which is the issues we're going to be covering today. So let's get into this Spider-Man story. Spider-Man leaps through a burning building, carrying a mother and son as the fire licks at his heels, his spider sense working in overdrive. His spider sense is telling him where to step and what is about to fall apart. As a gust of flames follows him, he leaps out a window, carrying the pair down to the waiting firefighters below. "They're gonna be fine. Good work, Webhead," the fire chief says, and Spider-Man nods, coughing out some smoke. The whole place is burning down. "Any idea how many are still inside?" he asks. And the chief shakes his head, telling the hero that there are too many for his team. Spider-Man nods, leaping into action. "I got this," he says as he goes back in, his spider sense kicking into overdrive as he saves everyone in the building. A short time later, he's sitting on an ambulance, breathing deeply from an oxygen mask. But after the fire is put out, the firefighters find someone that Spider-Man missed. "We missed one on the 4th floor, the firefighters say, as they carry the body out. Spider-Man looks up as a woman comes rushing over, tears falling out of her eyes. "No, Jerry!" she screams, whirling on Spider-Man as he tries to apologize. "My husband, you were there! You went back for a dog, why not him?" she shouts, beating his chest with her fists. Spider-Man stands there, taking it. I didn't know he was," Spider-Man whispers. "You're a superhero! You could have saved him! Why didn't you?" she continues to shout at him. And finally, the EMTs lead her away. They leave Spidey standing there, dejected, and the chief walks over, putting his hand on the hero's shoulder. "It's not your fault, man. You did everything that you could," the chief says, explaining that there are some nights that no matter how hard you try, you just come up short. Spider-Man turns, swinging away, returning to his apartment, pulling off the smoky costume and getting into bed. He tries to sleep, dreams of Uncle Ben and Aunt May filling his mind, the trio laughing and smiling as they enjoy a peaceful lunch together. But things turn sinister as Aunt May and Uncle Ben suddenly burst into flames. Peter snaps awake, sitting up with a gasp, looking at his costume on the floor. He grabs it angrily. "What am I supposed to do? What?" he shouts as he tears it to pieces, standing there, looking at his torn suit. "I use my power every day, and I still can't save everyone. There has to be a way," he whispers, his eyes roving the room and landing on the Oscorp badge. Meanwhile, at the rundown bar in the city, Max Dillon is meeting with an old electrician buddy of his. The friend lays out a plan that he's cooked up. He shows the plans for an electrical grid that protects some high-end stuff. "Stuff you could easily shut down. The way I figure it, we split it 50-50. The friend smiles. Max leers back at him, holding out his hand to shake on the deal. And he shocks his old friend until the guy falls to the barroom floor, dead and smoking. Max continues his creepy smile as he picks up the plans. Electro always gives and gets 100%. Back over at Oscorp, Norman Osborn enters Peter's lab, calling out Peter's name. "Peter, you're drawing a dangerous amount of power into your lab. And if something goes wrong, I'm pretty sure they're gonna blame the man in charge." Norman turns to a container of spiders that are grouping together, all of them spelling out "Hi, Boss." Peter steps out of the shadows, explaining that the spiders are a sentient colony from another dimension. He shows Norman what he's been working on, showing that the spiders all move away if even one of them is threatened. See? They all share a group spider sense. They know when the other members of their colony are in danger. I want to tap into that kind of power. I need to know when other people's lives are at stake, Peter explains, but Norman shakes his head, telling him that that kind of an experiment is too dangerous. But Peter explains that he needs Norman's expertise. As the former Green Goblin, you came up with all kinds of weapons to shut off my spider sense. Let's put that old goblin knowledge of yours to good use for a change. Meanwhile, out in the city, Bailey, the new Spider Boy, the sidekick of Spider-Man apparently, is leaping across the rooftops, still upset that no one remembers his name, nor is there any sign that he ever actually existed. But his spider sense begins to tingle. He leaps down to a recently burned up building, putting his hand on it, and flashes of Spider-Man saving people and failing to save one person at the end fill his mind. Bailey sighs. I can see where this is going. Peter Parker is about to do something monumentally stupid and reckless, and it's going to be up to me to fix it. Again! Barely back in existence, and this is how I'm spending my Thursday. Typical, Bailey says as he leaps through the city. Back over at the Oscorp lab, Peter and Osborn are finishing their calculations, and after strapping Spider-Man into the chair, Norman stands by to activate the machine. All right, here we go. Opening the floodgates at 0.001%. He says, flipping the lever. Energy suddenly pours into Peter Parker and he screams out in pain, but suddenly he sits up, feeling his spider sense fully activated. Norman, it's working! I could sense everything! People nearby are in danger, he says as he unstraps himself. Norman tries to stop him, explaining that they need to collect more data, but Peter doesn't listen, leaping out the window. Fine! I'll monitor you from here, Norman shouts after him. Spider-Man moves quickly, swinging through the city, saving a construction worker that is falling. But he doesn't hesitate and he keeps moving. A bike messenger is pulled out of the way of a speeding car, and a hot dog is pulled out of the hands of a man who would have choked on it. A webbing is then shot over an open sewer grate that a woman would have stepped on. But below the city, Electro is following the plans that his friend gave him. He finds the electrical boxes and quickly blows the fuse. On the streets above, the power lines begin to go haywire, and Spidey senses the two electrical workers are about to be shocked, and he leaps down, kicking them out of the way of the live wires, but the wires strike Spidey, sending the energy coursing through his body. At Oscorp, Norman is still monitoring Peter through his suit. Parker, what just happened? The amount of biofeedback you're experiencing is impossible. How are you still alive? Norman demands over the radio, and Spider-Man stumbles, falling to his knees, grabbing his head. My spider sense! I could sense danger coming from everywhere! It's coming from everyone in the city! I could sense them all! The electrical workers look at Spider-Man in shock, but he struggles to his feet, ignoring the pounding pain going in his head. I'm fine, fellas. I have work to do, he says as he swings away. He keeps moving through the city, stopping a bar fight, saving a man from choking to death, and stopping a taxi from slamming into some people walking across the street. From the rooftops above, Bailey watches as Spider-Man keeps moving, trying to save everyone. You absolute goon. You went and did it, didn't you? You altered your own biology again so you could be more like me, Bailey says to himself, but he looks up as the gold goblin comes flying in. Hold it right there, Spider-Man. I got something for you, the goblin shouts as he tosses a pumpkin bomb that explodes around Spider-Man, showering him in a purple mist. Norman tosses out a line that then wraps around Peter, yanking the hero into the air. Easy, boy. I got you. Don't fight it. You're coming with me. Doctor's orders. Bailey shakes his head, watching the whole scene, and begins to leap after them. Norman Osborn? With pumpkin bombs? I thought he was a good guy now. What kind of messed up reality did I come back to? Meanwhile, Electro has made his way to the high-end vault, which is now deactivated because of the electrical grid going down. He opens it with a smile, shocked to find stacks of gold waiting for him inside. There's a fortune in here! More gold than I've ever seen in my life, and it's all mine. Every last bar of it! He says with glee, picking up one of the heavy gold bricks and suddenly looking around, dismay filling his eyes. There must be tons of it. He drops the gold in defeat and begins to walk out of the vault. Next time I gotta hire some guys, he says, realizing he can't get the gold out. Back at Oscorp, Peter finally sits down on the examining room table. What happened? He asks, and Norman shakes his head, explaining that they were very lucky that he had one of his old pumpkin bombs that could shut down Peter's spider sense for this short period of time. Hopefully that'll buy us enough time to find a more permanent solution. But Peter is already getting up, realizing that he was late for dinner at Aunt May's. I promised I'd be there, he says, but Norman shakes his head, turning back to the computers. Out of the question. The effects of the pumpkin bomb aren't going to last forever. So if you'd prefer your brains to not leak out of your ears, I'd stay put. But then he turns back and Peter has already left. Unbelievable. How was I never able to kill this man? Norman asks himself with a sigh. Peter quickly arrives at Aunt May's, where he's greeted by Jameson, Anna Watson, and the Robinsons. The group are all then quickly joined by Norman Osborn, who had promised that he would join them. Jonah doesn't approve of Peter working for Osborn, but Peter defends his boss. Come on, Jonah, things can change. As Norman walks in, all eyes turn to him, and no one approves or believes of this new leaf that Norman has turned over. But Osborn then looks at Robbie Robinson, pointing out that the reporter has buried the hatchet with Tombstone and is even allowing his son to marry the gangster's daughter. Do you believe that second chances aren't possible? Norman asks him, but everything is then interrupted as Peter's spider sense begins to kick in again, coming back even stronger than before. He struggles as the dangers of everyone in the city hits him at once. Sorry, I gotta go. Just remembered something at work, he shouts as he stumbles towards the door. Norman and Jonah both follow Peter, knowing his secret identity. But Jonah is angry about what's happening. Tell me what's going on. What did you do to him? Jonah snaps, but Norman shakes his head. Nothing. He did this one to himself. Norman turns away from the angry man, his gold suit morphing around him. I'll pull him out of it. You'll see. I'm not the villain that you think, Jameson. I'm the gold goblin now. Yeah, that doesn't sound stupid at all. Let me guess. The name's still new? Just a little green, right? Bailey snorts as he sticks to a nearby wall. Norman is shocked at this newcomer who introduces himself as Spider-Boy. All right, out of the two of us, I'm Spider-Man's best choice for ground support, Bailey says, explaining that Norman needs to go back to his lab and figure out how to reverse the experiment. Oh really? I'm supposed to entrust Spider-Man's safety to an unknown child? But Bailey snorts again, explaining that he is Spider-Man's sidekick. He turns, leaping off the wall. Now be a good former psychopath and get to work. My pal's got all of New York screaming in his head. How long do you think he's got before it pops? Bailey shouts over his shoulder as he chases after Spider-Man. Spider-Man is still moving through the city, saving a group of people from being crushed by a falling crane. He then stops a man from assaulting his ex-girlfriend and pulls a man off of the subway tracks. But afterward, his senses are telling him that something dangerous is going on in the subway. He crawls along the ceiling, going to check it out, finding a group of goons stealing from an armored car. Yoo-hoo, boys! In case you didn't know, there's penalties for early withdrawals. Spider-Man shouts as he leaps down, but as he begins to beat the goons up, his spider senses keep buzzing him, sending waves of pain through his head, and he quickly realizes that his spider sense is warning him of the danger that the goons are in from Spider-Man. He finally hits one of them with a large enough punch that it knocks them all down, finally silencing the danger in his head. But that's when a blast of energy suddenly slams into his chest, knocking him away. And with his chest smoking, he struggles to his feet. Electro smiles as he steps out of the shadows. Thanks, Webhead. This couldn't have worked out any better than I planned. You took out my boys, so I don't gotta split the loot. And on top of it all, I get to be the guy that killed Spider-Man! Spider-Man groans. Don't say I didn't get you anything. Electro hits Spidey with another blast, knocking him through the ceiling and into the streets above. Spider-Man lays in the streets as people come over to help him, but he springs up, waving them away. Get away! You're in danger! He doesn't want you, he's after me! Spidey shouts as Electro flies up. That's where gentrification gets you! Real New Yorkers know how to run from Electro. Electro says with a smile, and he shoots blast after blast, forcing Spider-Man to leap and flip away. These are innocent people, he shouts as he tries to lead the blast away from the streets. Yeah, well, it's on you to make sure they're not in the way. Dance for me, bug. Max shouts with glee, but all the danger that everyone is in is making Spider-Man's senses go crazy and the pain is ripping through him. He stumbles to the ground as Electro wants to know. What gives? That last shot missed you by a mile. Come on, there's already enough rumors that we faked this stuff. You want people to think that we're no better than pro wrestling? Electro asks as he stands over Spider-Man, his hands pulsing with energy. But that's when Bailey leaps in, kicking Electro in the head. Why not? Let's try it! Spider-Boy tagging in! Bailey shouts. Spider-Man looks up in shock, recognizing the young boy that appeared at the end of the last Spider-Verse event. Why aren't you back in your world? Spider-Man asks, and Bailey shakes his head. For the last time! This is my world! I am your sidekick! He sighs, Spider-Man refusing to believe that he would ever have a sidekick and that he would ever put a child's life in danger. What kind of superhero would put a kid's life in danger to make them a sidekick? But Bailey isn't listening anymore, leaping at Electro. You know, it was bothering me that no one remembers me, but I'm starting to see the advantages. I can use all my old tricks, he says, leaping at Electro's face, twisting the villain's mask around so that he can't see. And as Electro tries to fix his mask, Bailey orders Spider-Man to help everybody nearby so that his spider senses stop ripping through his head. I just need to distract Max until Osborn can fix this, and you can close it out. I'll even pretend I learned a lesson, Bailey says. Spider-Man finally agrees, as his spider sense isn't telling him that Bailey is in danger, and he leaps in to help the nearby civilians. As Peter is continuing to save everyone, Bailey and Max are continuing to fight, but Spider-Man sees a nearby fire truck, recognizing the chief from the other night. He rushes over to the truck, asking the chief if he can borrow the hose. Just as Electro is finally gaining an upper hand on Spider-Boy, Spider-Man shouts out and Electro turns as Spider-Man turns on the hose, dousing the villain in water, short-circuiting him. "It's working!" the fire chief shouts, but Spider-Man realizes that it's working too well, and that Max might die. He leaps over to Electro, knocking the villain out of the stream of water. Electro struggles to his feet, shocked by what Spider-Man did. "Had to. You were in danger." But Spider-Boy is suddenly there, leaping onto Electro's back, his mask taking on a different shape, showing fangs, and he hisses as he bites into Electro's neck. "Gross! Tastes like ozone." He lets Electro fall to the ground unconscious, and Spider-Man is shocked as Bailey explains he was using his paralyzing venom. "Well, web him up and leave one of our courtesy of your friendly neighborhood spider team cards," Bailey asks. Spider-Man just looks at him. "I am so not cool with this," he says, but luckily Norman arrives with a device that will return Peter's spider sense to normal. "We need to address this problem first, and then we'll deal with the boy," Norman says, but Bailey isn't interested in being dealt with. "Deal with the kid who took out the bad guy and literally saved the day? You know what? Go for it. See if you can go a day without my help. Spider-Boy, out!" he says as he leaps away. Norman turns back to Spider-Man, raising the device, shooting it at Spider-Man, and instantly Peter can feel himself going back to normal and everything getting quiet. Peter thanks Norman and leaps after Bailey, catching up with the kid quickly as Spider-Boy doesn't have any web shooters apparently. "Did you realize that I proved myself and finally came to give me a pair of web shooters?" Bailey asks, but Peter shakes his head. "No, exactly the opposite. It's over and I don't care what you say or do. There's no world where I would have a kid sidekick. There's no we. We're done." Spider-Man snaps. And that concludes Spider-Man issues 8, 9, and 10. Now, I'm interested to see where we're going with this Bailey character. Honestly, I just thought it was a one-off joke at the end of the Spider-Verse, but I guess he's going to be a permanent fixture because he gets his own miniseries very soon as well. So what do you guys think of the sidekick, Bailey? Obviously, we're going to learn more about him very soon, but don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the YouTube jazz, anything that you need to do to know that we're going to be making more videos, and I'll see you next time right here.